I'll give you a month before you're joining your buddies.
Wow.
Because, I mean, you just can't treat your body like that. And on top of it, I'm touring. So it's a constant flow, constant energy, constant this, constant party. And that sounds like fun, a constant party. Got to a point where I would go backstage and look at my stage costume and start crying, because I knew what I had to do to get into that costume to perform was now depression. And I'm sitting there going, this is it?
You were the #1 rock star in the world. And it started with your first hit, 18.
Yeah.
You were in multiple bands. You started out in a band called the Earwigs.
Right.
But that hit changed everything. So you're in a car, I think maybe with some of your bandmates, and you hear your song 18 on the radio for the first time. What was that like?
We were the band that wasn't supposed to ever have a hit.
Yeah.
We were the notorious Alice Cooper band. We were the outlaws.
Yeah.
Every parent hated us.
And that was good for business, wasn't it?
We didn't necessarily do it that way. We just ended up being that.
Yeah.
And we did a song called I'm 18. I'm 18 and I like it, right?
Yeah.
That was almost a punk anthem.
Yeah.
Having no idea that was going to be a hit single. And we're driving along, and all of a sudden we hear, pick hit this week on CKLW, and 18 comes on. Believe me, we stopped the car. We had never heard any of our records ever on the radio before. Yeah. And we're sitting there listening to it, and we're all looking at each other, just laughing, going, what a mistake they just made, you know. Then I heard it 2 hours later, and then you hear it again 2 hours later.
Yeah.
And then you realize it's not just a big hit, it's on the charts.
Yeah.
And you're sitting there between the Rolling Stones and Simon and Garfunkel, and there's your song.
Wow.
And to the business part of rock and roll, that gets the attention of the money guys.
Yeah.
The worst thing you could do to a band like Alice Cooper, as notorious we were, is give us a hit.
Right.
Because now you had to deal with us.
Yeah.
And everybody gets one for once in a while. Get a lucky home run once in a while. Second one came out, was a bigger hit. Third one came out, was a bigger hit. So all of a sudden now, we didn't chase the charts. We didn't say we got to write a song that's going to be on the charts.
Right.
We got that song on, and now the charts was looking at us.
Yeah.
And we were in that golden age where Bob Ezrin, our producer, knew how to take our songs and make them into hits.
When you realized you needed Jesus, and you were raised as a Christian.
Oh, I was the
in a
prodigal
Christian
son.
home.
I mean, I grew up, all my friends were Christian kids.
Right.
I was in church Friday night, Wednesday night,
Yes.
Sunday, all day Sunday.
Yeah.
And we grew up together playing baseball and doing everything you could possibly do. And then when the band accidentally took off,
Yeah.
1 in a million chance that your band's going to make it.
That's right, a lot don't.
And we went to LA. We were at that golden time when we came along with something that everybody wanted.
Yeah.
We were not peace and love. We were the other side.
Yeah.
We were the darker side. But there was a sense of humor to it.
Yes.
You know, and people started getting the sense of humor that this dark vaudeville was pretty funny. You know, it had both things in it.
Yeah.
I went as far away as you could get.
Yeah.
I became the poster boy for what was wrong. The 700 Club was burning my albums. Said, this is the worst person you could ever possibly.
Did you like it at the time when that happened?
We were laughing. You know, I almost wanted to go on the show on the 700 Club and go, okay, what book do you want to talk about in the Bible? Because I grew up in the Bible.
You could have given them a run for their money.
So, but I went as far away as I could. Became an alcoholic. Didn't realize I was going to become an alcoholic. You were just drinking beer with the boys. Every day. Different was that they could stop, I couldn't. And that beer was constant now. And it was not alcohol, it was medicine now.
Almost like a prop, too.
And it was a prop, but I mean, it was a good prop. I was never drunk, I was never angry, I was never mean. I was always that Dean Martin kind of cool. Until it started throwing up blood.
You've dodged a bullet more than once. When you were a young man, you had a very serious surgery. You still have a scar.
Yeah.
and your parents and you, of course, as
Yeah.
and your parents and you, of course, as well, all believe that was a miracle.
Yeah.
But then fast forward later in your life, you're at the peak of your success, you're an iconic figure, and you got heavily into drugs, and you're in a room and you've got a rock of cocaine, like the size of a softball.
Yeah.
I recall you saying something
Right.
along those lines. And you're using it. Your wife effectively has left you. She's
Sure.
moved to Chicago. She says, I'm done with this. And you look in the mirror and what do you see?
I had been awake for about 4 or 5 days.
Yeah.
And I was up on top of Beverly Hills in my big mansion.
Yeah.
I had a pipe, a rock, and a pistol.
Whoa.
And all my wife's dresses hanging up around the room so nobody could look in because you're paranoid as all get about police coming. You've got your cocaine. And I'm sitting there going, this is it? I've alienated everybody. I've got my cocaine now, though, and I've got my gun. And I go in the other bathroom and I look in the mirror. Now, to this day, I don't know if I had the Alice makeup on,
Yeah.
but I looked in the mirror and the lines that come down from the makeup
Yeah.
were blood.
Yeah.
And I was probably hallucinating,
Yeah.
but I flushed the rock down the toilet. Finally called up Cheryl and I said, I'm okay now, I'm back. And
Wow.
she goes, not that easy.
Yeah.
We finally got to a point of her saying, Christian counseling,
Yeah.
and this and that, you set it up. I want to know how serious you are about
Yeah.
this. I set it up with Lehman down in Tucson, and we started going Christian, and it took 5 years before she realized that I was not going to fall back,
Wow.
into doing cocaine and all that. But I understood that. I could totally understand why she would be, she loved me, but she was suspicious. And any drug addict will tell you that drug becomes like oxygen. If you don't have it, you'll sell everything in your house to get it. I mean, it's an addiction
Yeah.
beyond addiction. And once it's gone, you don't miss it at all.
Yeah.
I mean, once it was gone, I had never even, it was just gone,
Yeah.
But I mean, when you're addicted, you are attached at the hip, and honestly, nothing else is important.
When you were younger, you're just getting started in your career. You met Frank Zappa.
Yeah.
He was going to record you. He says, do you have an agent? He said, we don't have one yet. So you met Shep Gordon, and you walked into a room, and 3 iconic rock stars were in that room. Who
Right.
were they?
It was Jim Morrison, Jimi Hendrix, and Janis Joplin.
Almost like the Mount Rushmore
Yeah,
of rock.
exactly. All dead at 27, by the way.
Yeah, so they're in the so-called 27 Club.
Right.
And, now, and since then, of course, Amy Winehouse
Right.
has joined that so-called club.
there's
Brian
about 20
Jones,
of them.
Yeah, there are. Brian
Yeah.
Jones from the Stones
Yeah.
and Kurt Cobain,
Cobain.
all tragically dead at the age of 27. But you walk into this room of these iconic rock figures, and they were so talented. I remember you told me each one kind of was an innovator in music, weren't they? I mean,
They were the 3 most influential people in rock.
yeah,
I mean, other than the Beatles and the Stones.
yes,
They were the 3 that were everybody knew who they were.
That's right.
And Jimmy did something nobody had ever done, Jim Morrison did something nobody had done, and Janis Joplin did.
very true.
So there they were, the most creative people in the building. Nobody knew at
Yeah.
that point they were going to be dead at 27. And maybe it was that whole James Dean, live fast, die young, and have a good-looking corpse.
Right.
But that was kind of the attitude.
Right.
Nobody wanted to get to 30.
Yeah,
When I hit 30, I went, I'm washed up.
yeah,
Nobody ever thought past 30.
no.
Because you went, oh my gosh, what am I going to do when I'm 30?
Yeah. My perspective as a fan, I'm a few years younger than you, not that many, but, I grew up listening to all this music, admired all these people. So in a short period of time, around 1970, the Beatles break up. All these rock icons die. I was using drugs at that time. I was smoking a lot of weed, using LSD. And in my mind, to me, it was like, this era is over. This is all empty. And that sent me on a search.
Yeah.
kind of a process of elimination.
Sure.
What is the meaning of life? Was a 17-year-old kid. I said, well, it's not in drug, sex, and rock and roll. Been there, done that, little version of it. It's not in the affluent world that my mother lived in, and she was friends with John Wayne, and she had a friend who was close to Frank Sinatra's wife, so she knew Frank. So it's not in that world, that affluent swinging world. Where is it? And then I came across a group of very outspoken Christians on my high school campus, sitting around in a circle singing songs about God. I thought they were delusional, but for the first time in my life, I thought, what if they're right?
Yeah.
So let's talk about the Hollywood vampires. So
it was
Harry
a drinking
Nilsson,
club.
Keith Moon,
Harry Nilsson, John Lennon, Mickey Dolenz, Bernie Taupin, and anybody else that would come into town.
John Lennon occasionally?
Yeah, he would come in, and we would sit there and we would drink every night at the Rainbow, last man standing kind of thing. And when that kind of broke up, because we went back out on tour, half of them were dead. And still, we went right on because I was in control of this drinking. At least I thought I was, until I realized I really wasn't in control. It was now medicine. And I didn't even like the taste of it anymore, but I had to have it. I woke up one morning, threw up blood, and Cheryl goes, "Party's over." And I was in an institute, to stop. And you know what? After 2 days, I felt great. But I kept going. When I get out of here, I'm going to go back to my thing, and it's going to be everywhere. I came out of there, never once had a fallback, never fell back on alcohol, never fell back on drugs. 39 years, 38 years. So God literally took it away from me.
So you don't describe it as you were cured, you say you were healed.
Yeah, people would say, well, you're a cured alcoholic. And I go, no, I was a healed alcoholic.
What's the difference?
Well, God took it away from me. Even the doctor said, it's impossible that you don't at least fall off the wagon 3 or 4 times because you're the classic alcoholic. And I said, what you don't understand is that God took it away from me. Yeah. I said, it's a miracle. After a while, though, they went, you know what? God took it away from you. Because they said, everything about your life should be deception. That's what an alcoholic and a drug addict does. They put on this air that they're cured, but back here they're doing this and they're doing that. That never happened. And so even the doctors were going, miracle. You're a 1 in a million case. And I went, well, God works like that.
I think people are really surprised to hear that a lot of people don't know that you believe in Jesus Christ. It still comes as a surprise to people. And yet, not only do you believe, but you have a strong faith in him. You've established a center for young people called Solid Rock, where you're trying to really help turn people, get their lives turned around, turn them toward God. You don't hide this in any way. So who is Jesus Christ to you?
He's the core of everything. He's life itself. He's the light. If we don't all revolve around Christ, and we're way out in space somewhere. He draws you in. He's the light. You're drawn to that light. And it's nothing you can explain in words. It's something that happens to your heart where all of a sudden you realize who this is. And you realize, oh my gosh, I'm not worthy of this. Talk about I'm not worthy.
Yeah, I'm not worthy.
We are not worthy. Yes. And yet, still, being hung on the cross, he knew your name. He knew my name. And that made me go, how can I not believe in this? He changes your heart. Now, he didn't say, and now that you're a Christian, you can no longer be in rock and roll. His plan was, now you're a Christian, go be in a rock and roll band, but follow me. Be Alice Cooper. And that's what Christians don't understand. I can be Alice Cooper, and I can't tell you how many emails I get saying, that song you wrote, Hey Stupid? Yeah. Changed my life. I was getting myself that song spoke to me. Some of the songs that don't make any sense at all, they go, I turned to Christ because of that song. And I go, that song? What? It spoke to them differently. It said something differently. So now, when I write, I always try to have some lyric pointing towards Christ. At one point, we did an album called Brutal Planet and Dragon Town. And what it was talking about was, it was a heavy metal album. Oh, this is so cool, man. It's really... And then Christian kids started listening to it and going, this is a Christian album. It's talking about how this is a brutal planet. And Dragon Town is the result of it. If you get one shot, you don't get another chance. If you end up in Dragon Town, there's no way out. But Brutal Planet's pointing out all the things that point to Christ. You know, the horrible things, but the things also that point to Christ. That album and The Last Temptation, which was another album about that, it was written sort of like Something Wicked This Way Comes. The circus comes to town, the kid goes to the circus, and they try everything to get him to join the circus, right? And at the end, he doesn't, right? They were being sold in Christian bookstores, and my record company couldn't figure out why. They're going, why are we selling records in Christian bookstores? Because it was Christian albums. Wow. You know, 2 or 3 of my songs were used like in choirs, you know, that a song like I Am Made of You, Salvation. There's on these stories, you know, a murder mystery, but there's a song called Salvation, how the murderer is going, is there any chance for salvation? I guess, well, that's the song that, so you did all these horrible things, but yeah, there is a chance for salvation.
It's an amazing thing that, you know, people chase after these things. Young people today, you know, a poll was taken among them, and they said, what do you want more than anything else? And they said, to be rich and famous. And Andy Warhol, who you knew, once made his statement, it's attributed to him at least, one day everyone will be famous for 15 minutes, right. Something along those lines.
Like that.
And today, that literally is true for some people. Yeah. Suddenly you're famous online because you posted this video that went viral. You become a so-called influencer. And this is their whole goal in life, chasing after fame. But look, you've been there, you've done that, you've bought the t-shirt. In fact, you've been the t-shirt. And you're saying that what you're really looking for is God. Am I hearing you right?
If that's not your final goal, and that should be the most important goal,
right?
Everything else is secondary. Everything else is thirdary. Everything, you know, I always said this before, and a lot of people don't like the statement, but if I were going to put what's important to me in order, Alice Cooper would be about 5th.
Yeah.
Once you've answered that knock,
yeah,
and once you've committed to that, and once you start realizing how merciful that we've been treated, yes, and you know, and how much grace we've been given.
You said there's like Alice Cooper on your list is like 4th down on the list. What's number 1, 2, 3?
Well, I think your relationship with Christ is the number one thing. And of course, your family. My family are all Christian. You know, my wife is just, I mean, she's like walking in a Bible herself. And yet she plays Mademoiselle Guillotine on stage, and she plays all these characters. The kids are all in show business, but they're all Christians. You know, so when people say to you, they say, who are you? I go, well, first, I'm a child of God. Second of all, I'm in a rock band. You know, it's not, I'm Alice Cooper, the rock singer, and I'm a Christian. The priority is that I'm a child of God. Oh, and then I'm a rock singer, and I do this, and I'm a father, and I'm a husband. You know, so in that order, I think, is really who you are.
Do you think when you're young and you're hungry, like you're a young rock star, you're in your band, The Spiders, then you become Alice Cooper, you're climbing your way up, and then when you get there, then you go to the stage 2 and stage 3, and in your case, you become iconic. You're still iconic. You walk into a room, you told me you walked through an airport, people say, we're not worthy because it was in Wayne's World, and they think they're the first people that did it,
right,
when in fact, it happens to you all the time.
Right.
But, you know, when you get to whatever stage that is, do you think that for some of these people who start abusing drugs or even take their own life, is it because they get to the top and they realize there's nothing there? Maybe when they thought it would be there, it keeps them going, but when they get there and they don't find it, is that why they check out. What do you think happens in the mind of a person?
I think if you don't have the Lord in your life,
Yeah.
you're always going to be trying to fill that hole.
Yeah. Okay, here's a test. Here's the correct answer on the test. Make this choice. But it's up to us, isn't it? He's not going to force us to believe. You didn't have to turn back to the Lord. You could have continued on that course, and quite frankly, you could have been another tragic rock and roll story.
I was as close as anybody ever came. When I went into the hospital, doctor said, we'll give you a month before you're joining your buddies.
Wow.
Because you just can't treat your body like that. And on top of it, I'm touring. It's a constant flow, constant energy, constant this, constant party. And that sounds like fun, a constant party. Got to a point where I would go backstage and look at my stage costume and start crying, because I knew what I had to do to get into that costume to perform was now depression. It wasn't fun like it used to be. And it wasn't because of the Alice character. Alice was not the villain. Alice wasn't the problem. I was the problem. Alice was kind of the relief, because Alice didn't drink on stage. Alice didn't do drugs on stage. I was the one that Dr. Jekyll was the problem, not Mr. Hyde. And really, the only cure I had was Jesus. And the fact that I can still go out and play the character, and I can still go out and do the shows, and have fun doing it, and know that I'm still helping people out in a way. People that you can look at it and say, wow, I get letters like this. If you can stop drinking, well, I can. God made me that exception where he said, you are going to be known for this, and then you're not going to do it anymore. People will look at that and go, wow, there's hope. I can come out of this. But there comes that point in your life where when you're lying in bed somewhere in Wichita on a tour bus, where you go, what is this about? Is this really it? Is this all there is? There's that song, Is That All There Is? Because it can't be. There must be something better than this. And I think that's when you start hearing the Lord knocking, because there's nobody on this planet that he hasn't knocked on the door. Again, you said we have a choice. Do we keep pursuing what's in the world? Seek me and everything will be added to you. When I started proclaiming Christ, everybody thought, well, that's the end of Alice Cooper. We have never done better on every level since I have proclaimed Christ. It should have gone the other way. It should have absolutely ruined my career.
Well, especially because of a persona and a trajectory that people may perceive that you're on, but in reality, they don't realize it's a performance. You take on the role of a character,
Sure.
But you've redeemed it and turned it around
Exactly.
to use as a tool for good.
I think that's how it's been used. My show has always been a good against evil. Alice plays the villain, and what happens to him? He gets his head cut off, because the bad guy's always got to get his head cut off. And then what happens? He comes back, white top hat and tail, balloons, and he's redeemed. And just that simplicity of that will connect to people. Go, oh, he can be redeemed. He's not. They can't kill him. Well, you can kill his body, but you're not going to kill his spirit. And that's always been the ongoing theme of Alice Cooper, has been redemption at the end.
And it is redemption, and we're so thankful for how you speak up for your faith. Alice, could you define what redemption is to you?
Well, none of us deserve redemption, but Christ on the cross, if that blood is the most precious thing, that is your redemption. He was the perfect sacrifice. There's no sacrifice we could make that would be better than the Son of God dying for you, understanding your sin, understanding that you're going to sin after that, and yet still paying the price. You can't do it. You can't ever repay that. And once you realize that, then you are connected to the Lord. He has taken a residence in your life, and now he's with you at every moment. Redemption is giving into that and saying, Lord, you're right, here I am.
Exactly. When Jesus died on the cross, he said, it is finished. It was a complete payment. It wasn't like, here's a down payment, we'll work out the rest later. A complete payment. And the word finished is interesting. It comes from a single word, tetelestai, which means it's completed, it's accomplished, it's done.
Yes.
Like the old song says, Jesus paid it all to him I owe.
That's true. There's no way of repaying God back except for acceptance. And again, we go and we live this life, and we're in an everyday situation where everything comes at us in a million ways. How do you deal with it? Well, you lean on Christ.